Hello, good afternoon, LinkedIn. As I'm trying to recover from an almost heart attack, I went live a couple of minutes ago, started interviewing my guest, and then got a pop-up that broadcasting was not working. And I said, no, please, not on the day that I've been waiting for days and days and weeks, and just not today. Any other day be broken. So to recover from lost time, today, as you know, I'm interviewing Lou Adler, and I am a huge fan of his work. He's, the guru of recruitment, of the recruitment industry, but not even recruitment industry, really hiring and hiring processes in general. And we'll talk a little bit about that today, so that if you're not, for some reason, fully familiar with Lou Adler's work, you will be as of today. I remember when I first started out in the recruitment industry and fell completely in love with the field, looking to learn from experts. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy to find people to learn from in our field. So I remember buying Lou's book years and years ago, and it's still on my bookshelf. And so when I connected with Lou and he said yes to being interviewed, you can imagine how excited I was, and I am, and I have been. I also have to throw it out there. Lou has over 1.3 million followers on LinkedIn. So all of you, LinkedIn gurus out there with your puny followings, check out Lou. He's definitely been doing something right in his career. So without further ado, because we don't have a lot of time and I want to ask a lot of questions. Lou, thank you so very much for joining me today.
Hey, Marina, happy to be here. And we'll kind of dispel some myths that we have around recruiting and hiring today, I hope.
Tell me one. When you say myths about recruitment and hiring, what's the first one that comes to mind?
Well, the first one, because I'm writing a post for next week, is they say the problem with HR tech is HR tech. If we didn't have HR tech, hiring would be a heck of a lot easier. It wouldn't be simpler, but it's easier. So you think about the idea of someone posting a job and having a candidate find that job that has nothing to do about the job. It just says, hey, if you need a job and you have these skills, we'll talk to you. And it's hard to find that job, but if you pay a premium price for that job, your job gets elevated higher in the listing of X number of jobs. So candidates go in this black hole. There's a black hole for jobs. And now AI technology has to come along and clean that mess up of people not being able to find jobs, and they don't do a very good job of it. So that's my belief, is that HR tech is you need more HR tech to solve the problems of HR tech. So and it's not a myth, it's reality, but job boards get paid by how many job postings are up there. And the more they get, whether you're qualified or not, they don't care, they make money. So the whole business model is screwed up. And that's why I get kicked out of a lot of meetings with HR tech vendors anyway. So it's not a myth, but that's the one that we should dispel right away.
I would imagine that you're not very popular in these conversations, but you know what? I'm glad that you're saying that, because I feel the same way. And just recently, somebody tagged me on another person's post on LinkedIn, and this person came up with some sort of an HR, CV solution using AI. And this person said, you should speak because it speeds up the recruitment process. And my response to the person who recommended that we speak was, very polite, and thanks for thinking of me. I'm such a disbeliever in that type of work, just that removal of the human component also from the process. I'd rather not speak about it, because then the person will not be, not feel great after our conversation. But then I've been feeling, Lou, am I being old school in that, believing in that, the different type of hiring and recruitment process? Am I, going to look back 10 years from now saying, I should have been looking into HR tech a lot more actively than I have been?
Well, so let me kind of make a general statement. There are two job markets. This job market for people who need a job, and HR tech is fine for those people. But as I tell, and I say this loudly, is the best HR tech can do is help you find the best person in the bottom half. because the best people in the top half tend to have a different mix of skills and experience. They tend to be more diverse. They tend to get promoted more rapidly. So their mix of skills and experience is different, and it's totally different. And people in the top half tend to look for careers. People in the bottom half tend to look for jobs. So I make the statement, anybody who's silly enough to apply for a job has got to be in the bottom half. I mean, I know that sounds nasty and crude and rude, but the reality of it is that, and I've looked at the statistics, at 300 million applications from about 6 different ATSs in the past 4 years, 300 million. Only 3 million of that got jobs. That's 1%. Only 12 million, or 3 to 4%, got interviewed for that job. So you look at a system that yields 1%, and now you have to put in, I need good candidate experience for the 97% or 98% who didn't even get interviewed. So now you got to add that cost in there. So on the other hand, I contend that HR technology, like LinkedIn Recruiter, which is a remarkable tool, if you know how to use it. I just look for semifinalists, and I can find semifinalists an hour. Those are people who can do the work.
My semifinalists.
They can do the work. Hiring man, they're so good at it, they probably put recognition terms in their resume so I can find them easy, and they would see the jobs or career move. So if I call a semifinalist, 8 or 10 of people up, half of them are going to call me or return my call. Hiring manager would see everyone who I can recruit who makes sense, and the ones who aren't perfect for the job give me referrals. So that's a high touch model using high tech, but that's how you get, but you have to offer these people careers. And a job posting is not a career. It's a lateral transfer that's at best ill-defined. And if you look at the people who perform after they've accepted the job, dissatisfaction of people who take jobs, or let's say satisfaction of people who take a job for a posting, is only about 1/3. So after a year, only the people who actually took the job, who got a posting, actually are satisfied they took the job. 2/3, maybe 1/3 is okay, and 1/3 says, why did I do this? On the company side, it's the same exact thing. They know the biggest turnover is people who applied for a job. So the whole thing is, so you look at the job market, which is a group of people who look for jobs and they think it's this great thing they can post. A lot of cost to get a job. It's actually not much cost to get a career. It's it's a high touch model. So you look at the cost to get a job is actually a lot less for a company than the cost to get a great placement. So you just look at it. It's a high touch model versus high tech model. And as far as I'm concerned, a LinkedIn recruiter and a good recruiter and this real piece of technology, which is pretty cool. It's called the phone. Boy, you can do a heck of a lot. That to me is as much technology as I need, and I can find candidates in hours. In a week or so, we're presenting candidates, and a year from now, the candidate says, I'm glad I took that job, and the hiring manager says, I'm glad I hired that person. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
I relate to that. And actually, talking about your story, I have some questions about that. But one more, just to follow up on the things that you said, and there's a lot that you said. We could unpack different pieces of it. But for people right now that are, so I'm coming across two different types of people and not that many in between, okay? So there are people who are urgently looking for a job because their employment got affected because of COVID. And then there are people whose jobs did not get affected, but they are soul searching, feeling in transition, and do want to, find something else. So if you are saying that applying to job ads is not the effective strategy, what do you recommend to people as an effective career management strategy and how to get noticed for you to want to pick up the phone if they didn't apply and call them?
Okay, so two things. If you need a job, which is in the short term, so let's say if you need a job and you got to get back into payroll to pay the rent and the car payments and all that kind of stuff, that's different than if you're looking for a career strategy. Sometimes they merge and sometimes they're different. Let's assume that you have time. Now let's go with the short term, because most people on LinkedIn today who are listening to this probably need a job. So that's why they would pay attention. In my mind, they should look at a job posting, but only as a lead, not as a opportunity to apply. So you see a job and it says, oh, they need a marketing analyst or a financial analyst or an accountant or a warehouse manager. It doesn't matter what it is. Use that as a marketing lead. Don't push the apply button. 1% chance you'll get that job. 3% chance you'll get interviewed. And 97% chance, and none of that will happen, that 4% of interviewing get a job, unless you have a perfect match to the skill set. So it's got to be perfect. So if it's not perfect, don't even bother. However, If you're looking for a warehouse manager, I guarantee you can look on LinkedIn and the search filters are there. You don't even need LinkedIn to do it. You can do outside of LinkedIn, but we're not going to get into that detail quite yet. But you can look on LinkedIn and look for people who are warehouse managers in your city in a facility that you're near. Or if you're an accountant, you can look for the controller of that company nearby. Or you can, so you use that job posting as a lead to say, okay, somebody needs that, is going to do that. But if you go through the black hole of the technology, you'll never get into the game. So you go through the back door and use that as a marketing lead. So that's kind of the general strategy. And what I would do is do not send your resume. Nobody wants a resume. A resume is useless, as bad as a job posting. You phoned it up, somebody did it for you. So it's not, nobody buys into the resume. On the other hand, what I would do is say, hey, if you're a warehouse manager and you're looking for that job, put together the biggest thing you've ever done as a warehouse manager. Oh, you set up the cross-docking system on an SAP platform using EID and doing this, this, and that. Summarize that and send it to the VP of operations or the head of the warehousing system. Say, hey, I'd like to talk to you. I know you've got some positions open. I'd like to chat with you. Here's one of the things I've done. So bypass the resume, bypass the job posting, talk to a person with an example, a work sample of some type. And what you're doing is you're not looking for a job, you're converting that stranger into an acquaintance before you become a job candidate. It's kind of getting on the phone and talking to people. So that's taking advantage of the tools that are there if you need a job. So that's the short term. You got to get going right away. The longer term is most of the people, I don't do recruiting anymore, so don't send me your resume. But if you want to send me something about the best thing you've ever done, I'll take a look at it. But that's about it. But on the long term, it's about networking. The best people network, and networking isn't meeting 100 people and hoping somebody has a job. It's meeting 3 or 4 people or 5 people whom you know that can vouch for your ability. And you talk to each one of those people and say, hey, I'm looking for another job. Who can you introduce me to that you think that at least might know of other opportunities? So you use your network of someone who can vouch for you to get you a referral to somebody else. You then meet those people. So now you got 4 people. You've just met 16 people. You get those 16 people to introduce you to 3 or 4 more people. Now you got 50 people. And I guarantee you in 3 weeks, you'll get a job. Oh, you're looking great. So that's the longer term that you should apply all the time. So I'm just giving you the short term and the long term. So that's my quick career strategy guidelines. And it's effective. It's certainly better than pushing an apply button, which is a waste of time and then complaining about it.
I love it. There are a lot of people, though, that say, well, I'm trying to reach out to people on LinkedIn and saying I would like to discuss the opportunity. And then they say, I don't hear back from anybody. So what do you think are some of the biggest mistakes that people call that online networking too, right? So not only reaching out.
It's a waste of time. That's not, I got 1.4 million followers. You think I actually know who they are? They only listen to me because I tell stupid jokes. And I get people aggravated because I really believe that what people are doing is a waste of time. So that's why they do it. But so if there's nothing in it for the person you're trying to network with and you come across as needy, that's not going to cut it. But if you see a company that's looking to rebuild their warehousing system, let's just keep on going with that, and you've done something related to that, well, then solve that problem. Hey, I'm reading, I know you've got 4 jobs open in this, and this. I also noticed in the IT department, you're doing something with the order intake system. So now you've done your homework with one company, you send it to the VP operations, or you send it to the head of IT and say, hey, and maybe send it to both of them. Here's what I did to bring the IT department, the order entry system, and the system on whatever it is, the Wix site, order entry system, whatever it is, you just describe something you've done that solves their problem. They'll then talk to you. Oh, this is a pretty cool guy or a cool woman. It doesn't matter. It's just the fact is you're bypassing the system and doing something that's meaningful rather than wasting your time pushing a apply button and hoping your resume matches to some artificial job description that was promoted at the top of the list. I mean, if that isn't the most stupid way to do a job posting, I mean, there's no reason technology at this point in time can't say, hey, I'm looking for a job in Chicago in warehousing within 10 miles of Niles. What's there? And all the 14 jobs pop up. There's no reason technology can do that, but the job boards can't do it because they don't make any money at it. So follow the money and you'll realize the system is screwed up. And candidates have to dig through the system. On the other hand, for somebody who's savvy, you can use that same system to beat out the competition, but you got to be different.
Yeah, and look
Sorry
at
for going on for that, but
research
I'm
outside of
passionate
the
about
scope.
this subject.
Yeah, and also research outside the scope of. I love your suggestion of looking at all the postings at the company and seeing if you can draw those parallels, make links, and show that impact. I think it's really interesting, and also to again draw attention to something else, because you say so many amazing things very quickly in everything you're saying. So I want to make sure that also our audience is capturing all those different pieces. But when you're saying, when you reach out to people, don't sound needy and just go in for an ask, but show that you're bringing value. And I think that's huge and really, really important. But do you agree, though, that a lot of HR people tend to take it very personally when a job seeker is bypassing HR and is messaging the hiring managers directly? Has that been your experience too?
Oh yeah, who cares? I mean, HR is a stumbling block. It's a piece of overhead, and those are all my clients. I mean, so I tell this to everybody I talk with. What I'm saying now is not anything hidden. I think they're being a bottleneck to the system that's ineffective doesn't seem like a good thing. Being fast or doing the wrong thing is not a good thing. So the fact that you aggravate a HR person, who cares? You're trying to get a job. And the HR person isn't helping you. They're in it to prevent lawsuits. And if I talk to the number one labor attorney in the country, nobody gets sued for this kind of stuff. But all their HR and compliance, oh no, we can't do this, we can't do that. Screw it. Don't do it. Bypass them. Talk to the hiring manager. They make the decision. HR does not make the decision to hire. If you're a good person, you demonstrate that you're a good person, you can do it. I don't care if you're black or white, green or yellow, old or young, physically challenged or not, you deserve an opportunity that way, and you will not get it through the normal system.
Okay. But so
and by the way, let me kind of just make one thing. I was trying to put in chat here, but I guess I can't. I put together and it's a free class on how candidates can be interviewed, how they have to control the interview. And let me just say, you might want to write it down and put in chat if you can do it, Marina. You have to put this in www.winwinhiring.com. Somehow you have to put the www in first, but it's www.winwinhiring.com. If you go to that page, you'll see a free course for job seekers on how to ace the interview or prep for the interview. So you might want to mention that at the end. I want to make sure I don't forget that. I was trying to see if I could put it in the chat, but I don't see how I can do that.
I will do it for you. But so Lou, where does that then leave third-party recruiters? And especially today in this context, again, we're having, we're no longer in the candidate-driven market. So if you're saying, HR is not the decision maker, neither is the third-party recruiter. So what value do you think we still bring to the equation?
Oh, good recruiters bring value. I don't want to, again, if you're looking for a job, which is this transactional process, that's fine. And people make money placing people transactionally, box checking skills and putting people in. That's a transactional market to fill a job just in time. If you want the career market that I'm talking about, and I don't do a lot of recruiting. I do it every now and then when I'm training companies. I'll say, here's how we'll do it, and we'll do the search together. That's the career market. That's a different market. When I take a search assignment, and this is part of what the course is, I ask the hiring manager, what is this person? In fact, let me just kind of go back and you'll see how this scenario plays out. A job description lists skills, experience, and competencies. When a hiring manager gives me that, say, Lou, we're looking for this vice president or general manager or director, I look at this and say, that's not a job description. That's a person description. A job doesn't have skills or competencies or academic background. A person has that. I said, let's put the job description in the parking lot or the person description in the parking lot. What do you want the person to do? If the person's there over a year, what would they have accomplished? What would they do in the first 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, a year to accomplish that? And then I say to the hiring manager, if I can find someone who can do that work, would you see him? He said, of course. I said, and I guarantee if they can do that work, they probably have a different mix of skills and experience than on this people description, but they can do the work. So now I separate that job description, which is artificial and contrived, to the real work. I don't compromise on the work. If you need to get something done or built, that's fine. I totally support that. But don't tell me the person needs 5 years experience or 10 years and a degree from this school or that. They got to be able to do the work. I remember hiring managers says, how much experience does a person need to have? I said, enough to do the work. He said, well, how much is it? I said, I don't know. They got to do the work. Smarter people need less and dumb people need more. So I just have to prove they can do the work. If I can't prove they can do the work, don't hire the person. So, I mean, it's always about the works. And that's really in the job seeker class. I just say, if you feel you as a job seeker are being interviewed incorrectly, time out. Can you please tell me what some of the performance objectives of this job are? Because I would like to give you some examples of work that I've done that are most related. Now, how you tell that story is important, but asking the question is just as important. And as I debrief, and I literally debrief thousands of managers. I've been doing this for a lot of years, thousands of managers. And they always tell me it's the quality of the questions they ask and the insight with respect to a major accomplishment related to that. So that's really, it's the idea of just asking good fundamental questions, not like a bad question would be something like, what's the money? Tell me about a little bit about this. That's a superficial, self-indulgent type question. Ask about the impact that job would have on some business operation or some strategy. Those are questions that are appreciated, that demonstrate that you are a good candidate. So as a recruiter, I would always first ask my candidate, tell me a little bit about what you've accomplished. But then I would also say, I never cared if my candidates were good interviewers or not. I had to clean them up. I would prep them. As long as they could do the work, I would prep them. And that's what this course is. That free course is the pre-prep class, which I prepped thousands of candidates. And too many to remember. I just got tired of talking to candidates after a while, so that's why I stopped. But sorry for going long-winded, Marina.
But so and it's all very interesting. I'm actually taking notes. But so why are you doing this course? Are you also doing, paid career coaching on the side, or why are you doing it?
I don't know. I don't do it for the money. I literally was a very successful recruiter.
I know.
I just got tired of doing it. And I said, I think I can train people on how they can do it. And that didn't work out. I mean, literally, I've been talking about, if you read any of my books, and you can go on, 20 years ago, I've been saying the same thing, 30 years ago, but it hasn't happened. So I figured, hey, in my retirement, I'll still keep on trying to push the envelope to see if I can happen. Not sure if I'll ever get there, but I'm hoping for. So I don't know why I do it. I guess because my wife doesn't want to hang around me. I've been married 50 years, so I appreciate that.
That's impressive. But it brings you true joy to do it. Is that where you find your fulfillment and the meaning of your work when you're doing these types of trainings?
When I do the training, and that's a great question. What I really find great pleasure in is when a candidate reads the book and they write some comment on Amazon or send me an email that says, because of that, I got a great job and I want to thank you. That is hiring managers. I mean, I've been trying to change their minds. It's very hard unless I control the process. Right. But I do get great satisfaction when a candidate does what I suggest and it actually helped them. So that I enjoy those stories when I get them. I get them from hiring managers too, but I really appreciate the ones that were an individual person, because they're generally not assessed properly unless they take matters into their own hands. And I don't make a lot of money on the candidate side. I give the course away for free, so I can tell you I don't get a lot of money on it.
But that means it's really you're doing that because it fulfills your own, it motivates you, gives you that meaning, and I think that's amazing. So listen, you said at the beginning that you suppose that most people are listening to this right now and watching because they're looking for a job. So not true. Most people are here because they're massive fans of your work. So when I posted
you said there, I didn't hear what you said. I do have hearing aids. I am pretty old, so I didn't hear what you said.
They're massive fans of your work. I wrote my post on LinkedIn saying that I was interviewing you, and I had so many people reach out saying, "Oh my God, you're interviewing Lou Adler. How did you get him to say yes?" And we're very excited about it. So you have more fans on this call.
Okay, thank you.
And you do job seekers and a lot of HR people.
Well, I just noticed I just looking at my followers, I just dropped from 1.33 million to about 900,000. So 400,000 people just dropped off based on what I just said. So
it's all HR people. You just exited the room. Yeah. But so listen, I have a question because I'm wondering if that's where also, I'm not going to assume, I'm going to ask you and you'll tell me. So you were like you had nothing to do with recruitment as far as, recruitment agencies, executive search for, big part of your career. Like you were a top level, high level executive doing really well, like C-level. And then I'm noticing you left and started an executive search firm. How, why, what happened?
Yeah, that was a pretty stupid decision, I have to admit. Literally, when I was 32 years old, I was running a manufacturing company, and I was on a very fast track.
You were.
Had an opportunity to go up in Silicon Valley, but we just got transferred back to Michigan, from Michigan to Southern California. I promised my wife I wouldn't do it. So I took a job in Southern California, but then I got another job that offered to go back to East Coast. And I said, fine. And I was with this corporation. There was probably two stories. The chairman of the company is a very well-known person. I had to basically kowtow to him every step of the way. And once he forced me on Christmas vacation to meet him in Puerto Rico, which really aggravated the heck out of me. And I was 28 or 29. And I didn't send a thank you note, why would I do that? So the number two guy in the company, the CEO, said, you didn't send the chairman a letter, a thank you note for meeting. And I went in, I said that I wanted $2 million or $3 million at a time to turn around a division. I said, I'm not going to send him a thank you note. I didn't want to go through Christmas. He said, you always send a thank you note to the chairman. I said, I'm not sending any goddamn. Then I was pretty profane. He said, stop the profanity, young man. I said, no, I'm not going to do it. He said, so that was kind of the start. I said, I just don't want to be in corporate life if this is what it's like. But then I had a group president. So this would be the third level down, who he and I just hated each other. I mean, he might not have hated me. I hated him. I was really very good at working about 2 weeks, but every other Thursday, this guy came down from corporate headquarters to show how bad I was turning around this division. And that was a miserable day. I quit 5 times in that 1 year. I met these recruiters. And so this is a long story, but it's kind of the true story. And these recruiters who I had hired 5 guys from, plant manager, controller, some head of engineering, who all work for me, they invited me over to his house for dinner. The guy was this wealthy guy, drove a Bentley, had a butler. I mean, this is a beautiful house. And he had this delightful dinner with the great wine. I mean, he invited me. I was probably his biggest client at the time. And we're driving home. My wife says, why don't you become a recruiter? I mean, literally, that's what it was. And I then quit 3 more times that year and became a recruiter. And I realized that I was in manufacturing, but recruiting is like manufacturing. There's a lot of waste in it. And in manufacturing, your goal is which is my background, is to eliminate the waste. Now, we didn't have Six Sigma at the time, but we kind of knew how to get perfect parts, but we didn't have the measurement system to get perfect parts. And at the time, probably 3 Sigma, which was about 5% scrap, was pretty good, or 3% scrap. And we knew we could get to 0%, but we never had the systems to get there. So when I got into hiring, I realized it was a waste of time. I mean, there are good people being interviewed who don't get jobs. I mean, so you look at it and said, we can figure it out. So my goal at that time was to figure, I think we can do this. And that ultimately took 10 years to figure it out, but that ultimately became performance-based hiring. So that's how I got into it. I could just see it was a business process, just like manufacturing. Eliminate the scrap, focus on the things that really make sense. The job description was one big thing. A posting where nobody can find is another big thing. Taking some DISC or a predictive index is useless. So people don't. I just had some guy just send me an email today. He said, I've been learning all about DISC and I thought it was pretty good until you put the big kibosh on it. I mean, you can't ask a yes, no question. Would you rather go drink beer or go do some technical manual? I personally would rather drink beer than read a technical manual. I'd rather do that. But I'm actually I don't drink beer too well, but I am real good drinking that technical manual. So what I prefer to do has nothing to do with what I'm capable of doing. Would you rather be in a party? Yeah, I'd rather be in a party and smoke pot. Okay, but that doesn't mean I'm not a good engineer or not. So you kind of look at all these things and say, this stuff is stupid.
Are there any personality
to call them out?
Are there any personality assessment tests that you
don't like any of them? They're all useless. Now, let me say this. They're useless for assessment purposes pre-selection. They're not useless for collaboration after you hire the person. They're perfectly fine. How someone communicates, how they deal with it, perfectly fine for that. But somehow they morphed into this pre-assessment process. And that's where the problem is. There's 37 to 48% false positives, meaning you can have a great DISC profile and being incompetent. On the other hand, there's 42% false negatives. This person is a little bit introverted, but the best salesman we've ever had because they're persistent as heck. So you start looking at the false positives, false negatives, and they're just what appears to be a superficial safety net that somebody who's lazy doesn't really want to do the dig deep in is, hey, if I'm hiring a salesperson, I want somebody who can make quota year after year. It's the only thing I've observed. Some people are aggressive, some people are quiet, some people are more persistent, some people are loud. I don't care. If they make quota year after year, I'm going to understand how they did it, and if that meets my needs, I'm going to hire the person. So again, we're going off on tangents, but you know that I've been through the wars many times here.
Yeah, and I'm curious also to know, I mean, well, first of all, let me ask, because we have about 10 minutes left, and I do want to make sure that I'm also addressing questions from our audience. So Marielle Riffy, who, by the way, said she paused her work and her studies today for this interview and to listen.
Thank you, Marielle.
Yeah,
hopefully it was worthwhile, but if not, you're probably going to a different career now, so I apologize for that.
Right.
7 or 8 years from now, you'll thank me, but now I know it's frustrating.
No, but she's a catalyst for change. So I'm not surprised by her question. She said, how can we change the perception of recruiters and hiring managers when people switch careers? They bring knowledge and experience, but most of the time are discarded from the process. And it's actually really even more so the case in Montreal, I can tell you, in the Quebec market. Career transitions are just extremely confusing to most hiring managers and HR decision makers. So what can we do to make career transitions more acceptable?
Well, let's kind of go through it if it's possible or not. So let me kind of go through my quick interviewing methodology, and I think you might be able to tease out the process. When I interview a candidate, I kind of have it, and I've already taken the assignment. I kind of know what projects the person's going to work on. That you're going to deal, 3 people reporting to you. You're going to be dealing with the IT department, the marketing department, and the sales department, and probably the accounting department to get whatever it is. So I kind of know the scope and scale of the job. And I kind of know the pace and the culture of the organization. So I kind of have a sense of, okay, I got this job figured out in my mind. I then interview a candidate and I say, tell me about the biggest thing you've ever accomplished in your whole life, biggest accomplishment. Who was on the team? Who'd you work with on the team? How did you get on the team? What kind of challenges did you face on the team? What plan did you put together? And this is all in that free course, at least roughly. So then I got a sense, okay, the person's kind of doing the same kind of decision-making, managing the same kind of things as the person needs to accomplish. So I said, that's kind of a rough fit here, different industry, but the complexity of the decision-making and the management, the organizational style, and the types of people the person's dealing with are comparable. So then I say, hey, one of the big things, that's my most significant accomplishment question. My other question is, hey, here's one problem we have. If you were to get this job, here's a problem you're going to have. You've got to implement this system on a worldwide basis to set up the individual, the tracking system to present to the non-accounting people so that they understand the cost of distribution on a worldwide basis. Whatever, I just made that up, of course. But so I said, how would you figure that out? Or what would you do if you were to get this job? How would you walk through that problem? So it's not a hypothetical, it's a real problem that is very likely the person to face on the job. And I'm not really assessing the person's answer. It's the process of getting the answer. And I'm very concerned about someone who says, well, I probably think about it, I do this, or they kind of come up with a glib answer. I'm looking for, well, I certainly don't know how they would get to this. I'd have to understand the tax implications across country. I'd have to understand the cost structure of moving from our plant from China into India. And if we did the battery plant, we put that in Vietnam. I'd have to kind of think through those issues. I'd probably want to talk to the tax people, the organizational people, but I'd have to figure. So I'm trying to understand their problem solving and thinking skills related to that problem. So then I said, wow, this person's pretty good. And then I might even make the problem a little bit more complex to see where their thinking starts getting shallow. Because good people, and I call it leadership is really the vision plus execution. They can think about the problem and how to put it together, the solution. So if I was a candidate now thinking about that, I'd say, hey, tell me about the biggest thing you need done in this job. And then you say, well, I think I've done something similar to that. Let me tell you what I've done. And you look at the organizational structure, the pace, the budget, the size, the scope, the decision-making. Then you might even want to force it. What kind of challenges do you think would happen here? Where do you see, this is the candidate asking a hiring manager, what are some challenges a person has? What would be the big stumbling block here? Well, here's what I did at this job, which is kind of related to that. So it's almost you get away from the interview and you get into a business related discussion about a real problem. And I think, remember I said, convert a stranger into an acquaintance before they become a candidate. It's just like a consultant. That's what a consultant would do.
Mm-hmm.
So be a consultant, but you have to get the credentials to get into the consultant. So, and consultants do that all the time. This is what I just described is what they do. They try to figure out the problem, and then they say, okay, I think my firm is the one that can solve the problem. Here's why. I've done A, B, and C. So I think that would be the approach in some way.
How long are your interviews?
Well, the first time, it depends. Generally speaking, I have a half hour to 40-minute interview first, but sometimes that's preceded by a 15 to 20-minute phone screen where I just say, hey, you're in the game. And then I because you got to remember, I'm dealing with candidates who might not be looking. And then I say, okay, here's what's the purpose of the job. I think it could be a career move. Let's schedule another short call tomorrow, the next day, if you're interested. So the next one would probably be 30 to 40 minutes. And then I would probably try to introduce that person to the hiring manager. Hey, have an exploratory call with this person. If you like the person, I'll interview him again. So if the person becomes a finalist, I probably have spent 2 to 3 hours interviewing. But it's a sequence of steps. It's not just all at once. I want to, because I know there's a dual buying decision here. I got to get the candidate interested and the hiring manager interested. So I'm trying to bring them together, bridge that gap. But overall, I would say I have a year guarantee, so I do my due diligence.
And how did you ramp up your business when you got started? Were you interviewing, finding those, A+ performers and then marketing them to organizations? Or were you cold calling and getting mandates and then headhunting?
Okay, so just so you know, I only have a few more minutes now, given my time schedule. I don't recall ever. Well, I'm not positive, to tell you the truth. The big thing I did, let me make this story short. My next door neighbor in 1990 knew I was a recruiter. He asked me to speak at one of his business groups. He said, I'd like you to speak at my tech group. I said, what is tech? And it was now called Vistage, where it was a group of 15 CEOs met every month, and they had resources. He also, at the time, he said, you might want to become a tech member. There was like 500 groups around the country, maybe 1,000 groups around the country of 15 CEOs of companies that were 5 million to 50 million. He then moved on to YPO, which is Young Presidents Organization. He said, why don't you speak there? So between 1990 and 2000, my firm, 4 of us, we probably made 400 presentations to these groups. So that's actually how it worked. And I just said, I hate job descriptions. I told people what they had to do, and I'd walk out of the room with 6 search assignments. It was phenomenal. And I had nothing to do with it. It was at my next door neighbor he's the one who set me up. And every time I haven't seen him for 20 years, but I did see him about 10 years ago in LA, pure random look at a museum. I hugged him. I said, thank you, Bruce. You're the reason I live in Laguna Beach, California. So it was the greatest marketing idea in the world. I've never been able to duplicate it. I've tried, but I know it's because Bruce, this guy, my next door neighbor, was the one who pulled it off for me. So I thank him. I still thank him now.
Incredible. I know we have to wrap up because you have an important appointment, but one piece of advice to third-party recruiters today who, and this is me projecting, are massively hit by COVID. Our businesses are hit. We're struggling quite a bit, hoping to recover. Any advice? What do we do to survive?
Here's the advice that I would give. Because my background was in engineering and manufacturing, and I got an MBA in finance and accounting, so I'd done so many of these jobs. Most of the jobs I knew real well. So after a while, I just created this thing called the performance-based job description, which is, let's define the work as opposed to the skills needed. What does a person need to do with those skills? So as a recruiter, every time I knew there was a job opportunity, I would just call up and say, hey, we have an unusual approach. We define the work as a series of performance objectives. You can call them KPOs, key performance objectives, or OKRs, objectives and key results. I just like to show you how that works. And I would just go in and prepare that. Hey, tell me a little bit about the job. And because I asked the right questions, the people say, oh, you really know this work. Well, I didn't really know the work. I knew how to ask the questions to define the work. And then I just said, hey, would you like, I'm sure if you want me to do this search assignment, I'll find people who can do this work. As opposed to most search recruiters look for skills. I look for people who can perform. And since I had done it, I said, you can call these 10 other companies. This is exactly what we did. And there's the results we have. So that was, and I always did that. So if I could get a meeting with a hiring manager to define the work, and I gave that part away for free, I said, it's an unusual approach, but I think you'll discover it to be a more effective approach. And we train recruiters to do that same thing. So that's our business, is we train hiring managers and recruiters to do it the right way. But even from a business development standpoint, in my mind, that's what a recruiter should do. Differentiate yourself, differentiate your process, your ability to focus on performance. You do those things and find people who can deliver the goods on that, you'll be fine. But if you just try to be fast, efficient, and you're the most awesome search firm in the world with no differentiating at the process level, you're going to be fighting like heck with everyone else who's got the same superficial story. So that's my story. Good luck, Marina. Hopefully this was helpful to everybody. And Marielle, good luck in your new career.
Lou, thank you so much. Bigger fan of your work than I even used to be. And I'm going to be messaging you for part 2 of this interview. So
I'm do it again. I'm quarantined in my house. My wife's not going to let me out. So I'm stuck in this little cubby hole, and I'm happy to do it. So call anytime you want. Thanks.
I would love that. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who listened in. I have a list of about 30 more questions than I would ask Lou. He had an emergency appointment that he had to attend. But let me know if you would be interested in having a part 2 interview with Lou. I'm going to do it anyways because I really just got so re-energized about recruitment after talking to him. So drop me a comment below, DM me, let me know if you would have more questions for him. Let me know what you thought. I, as you might know from me, am a massive fan of this direct approach, really saying what you think, having a very strong point of view. Some people might agree, some disagree with the point of view, but at least it's there and it's prevalent. And that is one of the things I admire and respect in people the most. So I would love to have Lou back. I will, but I'm curious to know if you agree and what your opinion has been. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Another LinkedIn Live next week. I'm doing them now weekly. And by the way, I created a LinkedIn page that's called Voice of a Leader LinkedIn Live show. So if you follow that page, you'll be in the loop on all of the events, all of the shows that I'm hosting. But there's one every single week booked up all the way until mid-July. And if ever you have topics that are important to you, speakers you would like me to get on to interview, you have any suggestions, tips, I'm doing it for myself in a big part, but of course in a big part for all of you as well. So your feedback, insights, suggestions, comments, criticism would all be truly appreciated. Thank you all so much. I hope you enjoy the beautiful, gorgeous weather we have in Montreal today if you're in Montreal. And I will see you all in just about a week from now. Thank you.